This is a Fox 12 podcast.
Welcome to Beyond the Broadcast, where we bring you behind the scenes of some of the biggest stories here at Fox 12. My name is Ezra Kaplan, and today I'm joined by Pete Ferryman. Pete, you got a story for us about needles in school zones. Give us a little bit, what's the story all about?
Well, it's something that we've been covering for the last year and a half here at Fox 12. And the latest development with this was a bill in the legislature, Senate Bill 1573, which would have banned the distribution of needles and pipes and drug paraphernalia by harm reduction organizations within 2,000 feet of school zones. Gotcha. It had bipartisan support. It was supported by a vast majority of the constituents. It seemed like a no-brainer. But one of the opponents of the bill, the head of a committee, State Senator Lisa Reynolds, killed the bill at the last minute, not allowing it to go forward for a vote on the full floor. And this outraged her constituents, who say that somebody who was supposed to be representing them just did the exact opposite.
Well, let's take a look at the story, and then we'll come back and chat more about it.
It seems like the Wild West. This seems like, keeps coming up, like, let people do what they want.
Outside Cathedral School in Northwest Portland, there's a strong sense of frustration and betrayal among neighbors, business owners, and parents. They insist the one person elected to represent their interests is failing to protect their children.
So she's not listening to her constituents when it comes to something so very basic as keeping needles out of the school zone. Then what are we doing here?
It's frustrating. At what point do kids' lives and their exposure to this matter? I gotta bite my tongue right now because I'm so upset at what she did to us.
That lawmaker is State Senator Lisa Reynolds, who shocked the neighbors last week by killing a bill that would have banned harm reduction organizations from giving away free needles and pipes within 2,000 feet of schools and daycares. Senate Bill 1573 resulted from a years-long campaign to stop the practice.
Are you handing out sharps containers today?
We are. We also always
really. I just saw 5 people walk away without sharps containers.
And a Fox 12 investigation that prompted Multnomah County DA Nathan Vasquez to convince the outreach workers to move from that one location. And while the difference here has been dramatic ever since, the neighbors say these groups will now be free to continue giving away those needles and pipes to drug users wherever and whenever they want statewide, despite an overwhelming majority of constituents who supported a ban in school zones. They say, in the end, they were largely shut out of the process.
We were denied the opportunity in the hearing to speak unless you were in person. We had people on the horn that wanted to participate in that process, and she closed it off.
And that's what was really frustrating, is that it didn't feel like Senator Reynolds worked with us. It mostly felt like we were ignored for a year and a half.
Now they say they just want answers.
Why'd you kill the bill?
Yeah.
Why'd you kill it? Because she did kill it.
We also wanted answers, but our multiple requests for an interview were ignored. So we decided to come straight here to the Capitol to get a response.
Yeah, hi, I'm Pete Ferryman from Fox 12 Oregon, hoping to speak to Senator Reynolds.
She's not available right now.
Okay, I've been trying 5 different times and haven't gotten a response.
We continued to try to find her, eventually waiting for her outside the Senate Majority Office.
Excuse me, is Senator Reynolds in there still?
Yes.
Okay.
She should be coming out soon.
Okay, thank you. Still no luck.
But she never did come out, exiting through a rear door instead. Later, after noticing we had been in the chamber, the Senate Majority Leadership Team called the Fox 12 newsroom wanting to talk to me. And while no interview was arranged, they did have Senator Reynolds' office send me a statement. It reads in part, quote, "Needles showing up on our streets is of grave concern to me as an inner West Side resident and as someone who meets regularly with concerned neighbors and community leaders." It goes on to say, quote, "When Senate Bill 1573 was introduced, I agreed with the goal but disagreed with the penalty. I worked on an amendment that was not accepted by the bill's supporters and chief sponsor. That chief sponsor is Senator Christine Drazan, who claims Reynolds never negotiated in good faith.
This last week, that's the most deeply disappointed I've been in a while.
She says Reynolds wouldn't agree to any penalty or enforcement element in the bill, which she says would have effectively turned the law into a mere suggestion. We also received a news release from the Oregon Coalition of Local Health Officials trying to justify the killing of the bill. In the headline, it claims a, quote, landmark ruling in Washington state, quote, proves decisive for the Oregon bill. But Fox 12 obtained an email from the nonpartisan Legislative Council in the Capitol sent by request to the lawmakers working on the bill. They reached a much different conclusion on the matter in Washington, stating, quote, you asked whether the court order is precedential. The answer is no. It goes on to say, this particular lawsuit will never result in legal precedent that would be binding in Oregon courts.
They cite this Washington settlement as the rationale for killing the bill. Is that a disingenuous argument? Is it a red herring?
100% disingenuous argument. A settlement in a different state doesn't set precedent in Oregon. It wasn't even a ruling. Like, two parties entered into a settlement because ACLU sued. That's just a business decision.
Meanwhile, Senator Reynolds says she is determined to get a new piece of legislation passed in 2027. But the neighbors in Northwest Portland say they're now skeptical.
Who is she answering to? Is it her constituents here?
No, I have a feeling she's got some lobbyists and some NGOs that she's got, obviously she's up for re-election.
And while the political back and forth continues, so could this in school zones across the state. A practice these neighbors say defies common sense.
We're not saying no to harm reduction. We're just saying put it in a place where it can help them and it doesn't expose children. It's really as simple as that. Just don't put it next to kids.
It's a really fascinating story, and it's just crazy that, it has been going on for so long. I think for some of our viewers who may not be familiar with the whole backstory here, bring us up to speed. You've been working on this story, for over a year now.
Yeah.
How did you initially get turned on to the whole topic?
So about a year and a half ago, a group of neighbors in Northwest Portland, in that neighborhood where these needles and pipes were being distributed, reached out to me to say, hey, this is going on, and we're not getting any response whatsoever from the powers that be, whether it be the city of Portland, the county, the state, their elected leaders. So I went out there, and then I tried to reach out to the organizations that were distributing the supplies, the harm reduction organizations, and they sent me a couple of statements, but they never answered my questions. And I tried to get interviews. They never responded. So finally, I went out there myself, and I got in line with the drug users.
Boots on the ground.
Quasi undercover, to ask the outreach workers there, why in a school zone? Why are you doing this in a school zone? Because the people, the neighbors, never really addressed the issue of whether harm reduction works or doesn't work. They didn't get into the merits of that. They were just concerned about where.
So this is more of a location argument rather than a services argument, or are you doing the right thing?
And none of my coverage ever really addressed the merits of harm reduction. But they just couldn't understand, why would you do this near a school? So we went out there, we did our coverage, we asked some questions. Their answers, I don't think, were satisfactory to the neighbors. They certainly weren't satisfactory to the Multnomah County DA, Nathan Vasquez, who saw our coverage and got involved with Portland police and effectively shut down the distribution of the needles and pipes next to that school in Northwest Portland, as a result of the neighbors documenting the drug usage, the drug dealers, the needles that kids would have to walk around every day on the way to school. And a doxing campaign of one of the neighbors who was calling attention to it. He saw that, got involved, and as a result, those organizations moved away from that school. Okay, so fast forward here we are now, right, with this bill.
Right, how did it come into a legislative topic?
Well, the whole thing it just seemed to make so much sense that, hey, there should be some rules and regulations regarding where you do this activity, this harm reduction activity. So a Senate bill was introduced, Senate Bill 1573. It had bipartisan support from both Democrats and Republicans. But at the last minute, the bill was killed by State Senator Lisa Reynolds, as you saw there in the story. And the arguments, as you saw in the story, for why the bill was killed didn't really hold up. So essentially, Senate Bill 1573 would make this a law statewide so that no harm reduction organization could hand out these needles and pipes within 2,000 feet of a school or a daycare.
It would make it so that what was happening in this neighborhood was not necessarily impossible, but illegal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It again seemed very common sense. 2,000 feet within a school, maybe there's other more appropriate places to conduct this type of outreach. And again, the supporters of this bill are not necessarily arguing the merits of harm reduction. They weren't opposed to that necessarily. Certainly not with this legislation, but just that 2,000 feet distance from a school zone or a daycare.
And so, I mean, this would basically get, not to say lumped in, but there are several laws on the books in terms of statutes around what can or cannot be done within these school zones. Things like extra penalties for drug charges or violence charges or possessing a gun. There's all kinds of things that are worse or are illegal because there is a school zone nearby.
And that's the crazy thing. As a result of this bill not passing, until some sort of legislation does pass, until then, there's nothing to stop outreach workers from standing like near the steps of the front entrance of a school, to hand out needles. And we've seen the direct evidence of the drug users who come immediately afterwards, the drug dealers who come, and the street party that ensues. So, it's remarkable. Right now, from my understanding, there is no regulation whatsoever. There's no permitting for these organizations to do this. There's no oversight. There's no accounting. It's not clear how much money these organizations are being given. It's just the Wild West, no questions asked.
So, I mean, just to make sure I understand it, is that, the DA stepped in, worked with the Portland Police Bureau, got this group to move their operations
after 10 years. They've been doing it for 10 years.
But
spot, yeah.
They did that through community diplomacy. There's nothing legally stopping them from just setting up right there and saying, forget you.
No, I mean, it was kind of like, my understanding was a handshake agreement between the DA's office and these outreach organizations, following the efforts of those neighbors and our series of reports. That is what led to the handshake agreement to get them to move from that one location. And I will say, since they have moved from that location, the difference has been staggering. I mean, it's
just of that area.
It's amazing. Now, if you get over to Burnside, there's still a lot of problems there. But in front of the school, and in front of the neighbors, that we worked with, I mean, if you walk down there today, the difference is night and day. I mean, still there are problems here and there, but it has made a tremendous difference. And the argument that the organizations made that we go to where the need is did not hold up, because clearly the need was coming to where the outreach was happening. So wherever they chose to do this outreach is where the drug users and inevitably the drug dealers would go.
So getting this bill in front of the legislature down in Salem, where did it come from? Who wrote it? Who sponsored the bill?
A bipartisan group of lawmakers. Okay.
So this wasn't like a single lawmaker's pet project.
No. There were Republicans and Democrats involved. And we were all led to believe, the neighbors, and I was led to believe that it was a slam dunk. In fact, I was planning to go down there with the neighbors when the bill was passed to get their reaction.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, the day before, we found out, oh my gosh, she just killed it. And it was shocking. It was shocking.
And, one of the things that we saw in this piece was kind of the efforts that you went through to get reaction, right? To get in contact with the lawmakers, with Senator Reynolds. And you really ran into, quite literally, a lot of walls, a lot of doors.
Yeah.
I think you and I have both covered various issues at the state legislature. Did that stand out to you?
You know, it would have been so much easier if Senator Reynolds had just talked to me. I mean, I don't think we would have gotten this far. I mean, it would have been so much easier if the outreach organizations had spoken to me the first time. If they had, they probably still would be doing it right there where they were. And none of this would have changed. But I think that there's a lack of checks and balances in Oregon in the Oregon legislature right now.
Yeah.
There's a lack of checks and balances in the Oregon legislature right now. And as a result, I think that my sense was that they were more surprised that I was there, that I was actually following up. In fact, I know that to be the case because one of the aides from the Senate Majority office came out and said, "Pete Ferryman, why are you here? What's going on?" I think that they're just not used to anybody really questioning what it is that they're doing because of one party control in the state.
Yeah.
So, which I think, by the way, and I want to point this out, I think that this is something that would happen if it was a state where it was nothing but Republicans in statewide office, or if it was Democrats. I think it's human nature when there's nobody to call you out on something. Oftentimes, you're not going to get called out. So,
now, one of the things that Senator Reynolds had pointed to in her statement, and I think you talked a little bit about as well in this piece, was the issue around what the punishments would be for violating this law. Where it sounds like that's where there is the friction. It sounds like that's where there's tension. Explain to me a little bit, what was that tension?
Well, here is where the rubber meets the road with this. Senator Reynolds told the neighbors, and she said in a newsletter, after the bill was killed, that she couldn't get agreement to a number of amendments to the legislation, and as a result, it was a no-go. And one of those was the punishment or the consequences of somebody who maybe would violate this bill down the road, this law. The punishment factor was one of them. My understanding from the neighbors and from some of the other lawmakers, my understanding was that Senator Reynolds wasn't willing to agree to any sort of accountability or punishment for anybody who might break this law. So, and that's why it kind of came up that what is a law if there's no consequences for breaking it? It's just a law just kind of becomes a suggestion, then, right? So, but there were also some legitimate arguments that were made by Senator Reynolds' office regarding the distance. For example, 2,000 feet away from a school, is that really feasible? If you look at a map, well, there's not that many locations where you could do this type of outreach, right? So, could it have been moved down to 1,000 feet? Could it be 500 feet? Could it be anything? Well, the supporters of the bill say they were willing to negotiate on all of these points. They say that Senator Reynolds didn't want to hear it and just basically killed it and stopped the argument. She says that that's not true and that they they weren't willing to to nudge. I've talked to more than a dozen individual neighbors, and all of them contend that what they're saying was the truth. And again, I've still tried to reach out to Senator Reynolds, but she hasn't gotten back to me.
That was my next question is, have you been able to get in touch with Senator Reynolds even since the story aired?
Yeah, no, it's been frustrating. I can attribute this to the neighbors and the supporters of the bill. They were frustrated that as her constituents that she wasn't communicating with them. And they were frustrated, and I was frustrated too, that as a member of the media, the mainstream media here, that I couldn't even get a response.
Yeah.
And so the question arises, do lawmakers owe it to their constituents and to the voters to answer to the people they're supposed to represent? And in this situation, for some reason, her office felt like they didn't need to or they didn't want to. So
you've spent a good amount of time with this community, with these neighbors. I mean, at a certain point, do you feel like you're able to take some of their concerns to these people who are in a position of power. They're elected officials. They have offices in Salem. As a journalist, how do you look at kind of that relationship to some of these folks that you have been talking to and have been telling you what their experiences are?
I'm an old school journalist, right? The idea of being an activist journalist is appalling to me, right? Like and I think it's very troubling to see that trend emerging.
Sure.
Right now, we did a good job, I think, telling their story. They did a good job documenting their story, which I think was so critical to this whole process.
Yeah.
I mean, they testified, they took notes, they had videos, they did all the right steps. They took all the right steps. It was a layup for me. I just had to go down there and make their voices heard, right? Which is what our job is here, right, at Fox 12. Our job is to make these voices heard.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that not everybody who's not in journalism necessarily understands is kind of how we bring the story to both sides. It's very important. It's, I think, something that we both value very highly, which is that both sides get a say, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you have to give both sides equal gravity, but you always want to hear from both sides.
Absolutely. And look, I made every effort. I mean, I took, our boss gave me the day off of anchoring our newscasts to go down to Salem to try to find her, right? And as you saw there, it appeared that either she was busy, there was no, she wouldn't talk to me. So yeah, I mean, but here's the thing: just because she wouldn't talk to me doesn't mean that it's not a story. The fact that she wouldn't talk to me or talk to her constituents, at least according to them, that is a story.
Right.
And I'm not intimidated. I've been doing this a long time. I'm going to tell that story, right? The constituents have a right to be heard and to be represented. Now, listen, there may have been some miscommunication. I know that there's an effort now by Senator Reynolds to meet with them, and we'll see how that plays out going forward. But to me, therein lies the story, that you've got a large group of voters, neighbors. I want to say 80-85% who are extremely frustrated, and the person who was elected to represent them, according to them, not really communicating with them or at least communicating with them, they say, in a disingenuous way.
So it sounds it comes down to accountability, right? It's an issue of transparency and accountability.
And I'll say this: Senator Reynolds is new to the Oregon legislature, and I think that maybe this has been a learning experience for her. My understanding is that she's very smart, very capable individual who cares deeply about the community. So maybe this has just been an eye-opening situation for her. Like, hey, I need to do a better job of outreach. And I do know that this meeting is going to be taking place where she is going to be meeting with the neighbors. And I think both sides, want the same thing. They want cleaner, safer neighborhoods. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm curious because this is a very specific area in Portland, that area around the stadium and especially around that McDonald's kind of, right?
Sure.
There's been lots of problems of various types in that area. And I go down there fairly regularly, and it has really improved since kind of some of your initial reporting and the DA stepped in. I'm curious, from your talking to these groups who live and exist in these areas, is there more that they'd like to see done beyond just the needle story, beyond just the harm distribution? What is it that community is like really craving or needing for them to thrive?
I think that this story is really a microcosm of the disconnect that we're seeing in politics right now. I mean, I think that you see this with the city council, with the Multnomah County Commission, with the state legislature. I think that they see it as, why aren't you listening to us? Who is it that you are listening to? So that I think it's kind of opened their eyes to a larger problem in that, in their view, they believe that special interests, whether it be NGOs, non-government organizations, nonprofits, political donors, have too much power, and it's coming in certain situations like this at their expense. So whether it involves crime, revolving door criminal justice policies, you name it, taxation, non-business friendly policies. All of it, I think, is it just comes down to like a frustration of them feeling like they're not being heard.
Now, the ultimate accountability for any elected official is an election.
Yeah.
Where does Senator Reynolds stand in her cycle? Do you know?
Well, she is up for re-election
in November.
In November, and a candidate has now stepped forward to challenge her as a result of all of this. So we'll have to see where that goes, but it's certainly gotten the attention of the voters in that district. Now, that's a very blue-leaning district. I don't see a Republican moving in there, or any massive change in that way. But could a challenger take the seat? Yeah, who knows? The truth is that I pulled the donors for Lisa Reynolds' campaign, for Friends of Lisa Reynolds, and it's a who's who of non-government organizations, unions. So there's broad-based money support for her.
Sure.
And if you were to ask the constituents in that district, they feel like those moneyed interests won the day at the expense of them. They lost in this calculus.
Well, we are running out of a little bit of time. Tell me, what is it that stood out to you that you think the viewers could really take away from this story? What is it that really drives home?
If you were to take a poll, my gut tells me that 85% of the people who live in that district would have voted in favor of Senate Bill 1573.
Right.
They would have. But because it might have been seen as a win for one side of the political aisle, the other side shot it down. That's their viewpoint. And I think that again, if it was flipped and the other party was doing it and this party, I think the same thing would have happened. So the big takeaway is that is a problem.
Yeah.
This story is a microcosm of a larger problem.
Well, Pete, thank you so much for kind of bringing us behind the process and giving us some of these really great insights. It's been really great to hear your perspective.
It's been my pleasure.
Well, that's going to do it for us here at Beyond the Broadcast. Make sure you check in right here each week. We're going to have new conversations with our reporters, bringing you behind the scenes of all the good work we're doing. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Fox 12 podcast. For more content like this, download the Fox 12 app to your phone or any connected device, like your Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or Smart TV.